The Broadway Show is your all-access pass to the biggest shows and stars of the Broadway stage and beyond. I'm Tamsen Fadal. Welcome. School's in session on Broadway this fall. It's Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls play. The comedy first debuted in New York off-Broadway 9 years ago. It's written by Jocelyn Bioh and directed by Whitney White.
I'm just grateful to be able to have a play as specific as this. You know, it has nothing to do with American culture or anything. This is like a group of young girls in a Ghanaian boarding school in the 1980s. It's like we are very far away from any, version of America now. And so I'm grateful that we'll be able to transport audiences all the way back there and maybe even see how far we've come or haven't come.
Right off the bat, you start to root for these girls, but also it's devastating with the subject matter and these young girls navigating all of this. And so I think it kind of started at 100 and it stayed 100 to the very end, because it kind of goes different. There's so much happening and it's fast. And 1 minute you're laughing and you're having a good time, and the next minute you are feeling like the gut-wrenching, knife, of what happens, towards the later part of the play. So it's so much. And I love that a play could make me feel all those different emotions.
It is not only for little brown girls, right? It is for anyone who has come of age in a high school system, right? Anyone who has ever felt outside of a group. Anyone who's ever tried to be inside of a group, anyone who's looked at a magazine or an ad or a meme and realized that they look really different than what someone's telling them they should look like.
Whitney really knows how to get us all to play. She's so silly and effervescent in her energy that I think brings out what is feral about teenage girls when they're together. And there's we're all getting to release this scream, especially when girls aren't trying to be cute for anyone. We're nuts. And it's so fun because all of the actresses are so incredibly specific and poignant and hilarious that I just think the chemistry we're already finding is going to blow people away.
I wanna belong to someone.
Sleep all day, party all night, never die. It's fun having vampires on Broadway. The Lost Boys, inspired by the hit 80s classic movie. Here's Paul Wontorek with more.
Gentlemen, Broadway producers. I don't say welcome to Broadway. You are very experienced with Broadway, but producers producing The Lost Boys. So where did this come from?
So 25 years ago, I was in an ill-fated musical called Urban Cowboy.
I know, you were fantastic in Urban Cowboy.
I remember thinking, it's a shame this show isn't working, but the idea of doing a musical based on existing IP was interesting. And at that time, everybody wasn't doing it. That wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
And I just thought, why isn't this one working? What is a movie that could work? And this movie, to us, kind of defined cool for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
As we were coming up in the 70s and 80s, this showed that vampires don't have to have British accents and flouncy shirts. They can be sexy kids on the beach in leather.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that we always talk about is we could see where this movie sang. It made sense that it was living in such a heightened reality that it would make sense that people would break it into song, which is obviously the hardest thing when you're making a musical, to justify that. So long story short, 25 years ago, I tried to get the rights to do this. Warner Brothers quickly said no. Worked on it for a little while and then finally let it go. And then about 5-6 years ago, the movie was on TV a ton during COVID. And I called these guys and I said, you remember we had this idea? And Patrick, fortunately, had developed a really great relationship with Warner Brothers over the years.
Yeah.
And so I knew we could get a meeting. And we went and got a meeting and we pitched our take on how we would bring this thing to the stage. And we found out, we didn't know this at the time, that this was one of the most requested titles in the Warner Brothers library. And they were super protective of it. And fortunately, they responded to our pitch and we were off to the races.
I mean, I immediately thought that you worked with Joel Schumacher in Phantom of the Opera film. I know he passed, 6 years ago. Was there ever a conversation with he directed
Not
the Lost
about
Boys
this, but we were very close. His assistant is a dear friend of mine, writing partner friend of mine, Aaron Cooley. So I've always, anybody that's in Joel's universe, even for one movie, which ends up being 8-9 months of your life, then you promote it and everything else. So it's about a year of your life. It feels pretty special. So I knew Because when Marcus had presented the idea, it was like, well, let's really look at this objectively. Not, oh my God, I love this film. Like, but not everything holds up, as most things with our youth, you know? So and it was a real big side of me that I wanted Joel to be happy. I really did, because I feel like he would have loved it, and I still think he would love it. I think he would love what Michael Arden's doing with the show, and what our writers have done. I think he would love the score. He's very, come on, between St. Elmo's Fire and tons of Joel Schumacher movies, he had a very musical feel. Yes. And so while the music in the movie is great in the movie, obviously you can't use the same, to me, for our taste, those things don't work. Obviously, we really love the form of musical theater, so you need story to move song and all this. So Joel's relationship was important. I mean, over the years, I've worked with Chait and Patrick, Diane Wiest. We did All My Sons together. Even Jameson Newlander, who plays Edgar Frog. Edgar Frog. We did a movie Bone Tomahawk together. I mean, I've got, I've known Kiefer, so I've got, I can kind of go through most of the cast, and that's important to me. My relationship with Joel, my relationship to the material, my relationship with Warner Brothers. So that's something that's always on the forefront of our mind, knowing this is a new thing, knowing we've got to breathe life into it. There's something different when the character's right in front of you, and using song as a way to get inside the character is something that you can't do in a movie. And I always like to look at those, as a creative guy, I always like to look at those decisions of when the really moments can really sing, and when they probably are stronger and better, dare I say, than the movie, or when there's give and take. And I love making movies, but there's something about this form, this material, that really lends itself to the stage. And I think that's the most important thing for us, is when people come in, maybe they're expecting something, maybe they're not. They can come in open-minded, but it's so hard these days. But the amount of heart that our show has, because of what musicals can do to us, because of what songs can do.
The world can wait. Tell me it's not too late to be fools, to be bold, to hold on to this moment together.
And so you've got this inherent passion that's won both in horror movies, right? We live at like a heightened level, just like musical theater. And once you get on board with that, it's so freeing. The highs are high, the lows are low, and we always talk about stakes, pun intended. It's a vampire joke. But once you really, so there's so much to really chew on, and that's been the most beautiful thing, is to watch people and watch these moments, these highs and lows of emotion. So it's something, to back to your original point, I think Joel would be so thrilled, because he was a guy that lived like that. When you go through his remarkable resume, gets beat up a lot for Batman and Robin, but that man had such a diverse resume, and this was one of his. I mean, the chance that he took with taking this material from the late Dick Donner to Marcus's point, to make these vampires, like, they don't need to be hundreds and hundreds. We don't need to see that they talk with a funny accent and those movies are cool, and those shows are cool, and obviously we can get into this or not, but the vampire musicals of that. But what Joel did, and really making it about youth, about life, about brotherhood, about your tribe, it just screamed musical theater, and what all of us have, as creatives, are the reason we got into the business, which was to find somebody that was like us.
In the day and in the night, I have to have you.
I'm going to say something, and hopefully you won't all jump on me like the Lost Boys, but I actually don't think that the film is like the perfect timeless film, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think sometimes it obviously works on so many levels, and it was such an event at the time. I was a kid when it came out, and the casting and Joel's work, there's so much beautiful stuff there. But when you take a perfect film and try to adapt it, it's kind of not the best thing to do. It's better to take something that just great elements, but
it also subverts the expectation of the audience, right? I'll use Back to the Future recently, and Saturday Night Fever, Footloose, whatever the ones that started this sort of movie to stage trend. when there's a giant expectation to see what you remember from the film because the film is so massive, if you don't deliver that, audiences feel like they've been robbed. But when the film is less sort of in the zeitgeist of something that everybody remembers, then you have the opportunity to serve the people who love the film, but also bring it to a whole new audience, to people who've never seen it or don't know anything about it. And also, to the point before, the problem with a lot of these earlier musicals is that these songs that are soundtrack to a film are not necessarily narrative that forwards the plot, and that's where you run into trouble. And so that's why, while there are a bunch of great songs in the movie,
we couldn't have just
we couldn't have just put them on stage.
No.
I wanna belong to someone.
By the way, you have an incredible score by this band I never heard of. Apparently, Mike Arden's been obsessed with them forever.
I know.
Who knew? The Rescues. So great. This score, I'm so excited. You must be excited to be bringing them to Broadway as well. And I'm sure a lot of people have raised eyebrows like, well, who's this band writing the Broadway score? But I can't wait for them to hear it.
When he first called us and he was like, I've got the perfect guys. And we were talking about these like very famous artists that we wanted to come in and write the show. He's like, I want you guys to listen to this band called The Rescues. And we were like, oh, yeah.
The Rescues. It sounds like it.
It sounds like somebody you should know, right? We did not know them at all. We immediately dove into their catalog and we all called each other and we're like, this might be the sound we've been looking for, and we didn't even know it.
Right.
And I don't know if you've heard the story, but they were doing a one-night concert in Los Angeles. Patrick couldn't come, but James and I went down and saw it with our wives. And literally halfway through the second song, we turned to each other and we're like, no one else is writing our show. This is it. And we approached them backstage. Like a friend of ours was the bouncer at the club, and he's like, I'll introduce you. And we said, what do you guys think about writing a Broadway musical? And Gabriel and the band stepped forward, and he's like, I don't know what my partners are going to say, but the answer is yes. What's the show?
Wow.
And we said, do you remember the movie The Lost Boys? And he said, it's one of my favorite films.
Wow.
And that weekend, they went home and started writing songs on spec and delivered the first three songs to us a few weeks later, like as an audition to get the job. 2 of those songs are still in our show. And they had no direction. We didn't give them any write this song or that song. They just dove in and they said, this is kind of our inspiration. This is what we feel the show should sound like. And 2 of those songs are still in it. And the other one was a very good song. It just didn't make it in the show. It's been a remarkable experience working with the 3 of them.
Aladdin is moving up the list of the longest running shows in Broadway history at the New Amsterdam Theater, now for more than a decade. All right, well, let's just jump in and talk about your long love affair with Princess Jasmine.
Oh, yeah. I love her. She's a part of me. And I think when you grow up, I'm a mixed race kid. I'm half Indian, half white. You look for role models as a kid, and she was always one of them. She's so many things. You see yourself visually represented, but also she's tough and smart and courageous, and she goes after what she believes in despite what everyone says around her. So I think she's an awesome role model for kids, and I love to be able to do that in a reimagined Broadway version of that every day.
Does it still feel emotional to play the role each night?
Yeah, but I think that you relax into it after a while, and so there's moments that surprise me. And I hear a phrase in a new way, or I'm watching other people and noticing something for the first time in that moment. And I think that makes me emotional, totally. Every day, there's a little kid in that audience whose life has changed forever. People are like, why do you think Aladdin's been so successful? And I think it's because we are so rooted in joy. Everyone is so happy by the end of the show, and that can be cathartic and healing, and there's so much not joy going on in the world. And so I think that it's a beautiful thing to return to that and to choose joy every day.
And what's remarkable is being in the show now as an adult, but you've played this role before, right? What's the difference between those two? I feel like there's a little difference.
Production value might have been a little different.
Aside from that.
No, I actually, it was funny, a friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in years sent me clips from that production. I played Jasmine and Aladdin Jr. when I was 12. And it's funny because there's parts of it that I'm like, I actually recognize myself in that little kid with braces. And we obviously didn't have a real flying carpet and all that stuff. But yeah, it's the same heart and the little kid in me I bring on stage with me every day too.
What did your family think when you got this role?
I think that the honor and the pride they felt was the most emotional part of the journey for me. and they've like seen me be an actor auditioning for years, and they've known I've wanted this my whole life. So I think to be there on my Broadway debut night, and I come out on a cart in my first scene, and I can see the audience, and I immediately spotted my parents, even though they were wearing masks, and I was like, okay, I can't look there for the rest of the night, because I could just see them like crying, and yeah, it's beautiful.
It's time to venture down to the underground. Hadestown is a winner of 8 Tony Awards and still a hell of a good time on Broadway. Here's Perry Sook.
So we're here on the set, literally within an hour of curtain, with the guitarist here at Hadestown, Ilusha Tsinadze. Thank you so much for the time today.
My pleasure.
So I gotta say, we're inches away from where you sit throughout the entire show. What is it like being such a pivotal part? You're not in a pit, you're not isolated, you're here playing guitar on the stage.
I love being able to see the cast as I'm playing and look out across the stage to all the other musicians and see the audience. The set itself is a bar, more or less. So I feel like I'm playing in a bar band in front of 1,000 people.
How do you go about mixing? You don't have the conductor, you aren't all there in the pit. How do you go about making sure everyone's together, making sure the levels are great and everything when you're here on the stage in the action?
The piano player is also works as the conductor, and he's got a little camera on him, and everybody can see him from the stage and all around. But we also have these in-ear monitors that we can ride the volume of all the musicians, the singers, even the audience level we can ride as we're playing, so we can hear everything.
Are there any moments that you get caught up in the musical, in the magic of Orpheus, that it's almost hard to maintain the band, or is it all business as usual?
Of course, there's always elements of surprise, so I have to
live theater.
Yeah, exactly. You have to keep a lookout for things. There's always something that can come up, and that's very exciting, and I sort of welcome it at this point. Listening is the key for me to be able to play the show well. I have to be in tune with especially the drummer, bass player, piano player. That's the rhythm section that I'm part of. So I have to be totally locked into how they're feeling the rhythm. And at this point, I've done it over 500 times or something like that. But it's still like every single time you have to give it your all to make it sound good.
Welcome back to the Broadway Show. I'm Tamsen Fadal. Let's get back to it. Schmigadoon is this year's Best New Musical at the 2026 Tony Awards. Here's an exclusive musical performance from the Broadway.com studio.
Suddenly, I find myself forgetting all the things that bounce around my brain. Suddenly, I want to plan a wedding, although I know that's perfectly insane. There's no sense in trying to explain it. What and where and why and when and how. All I know is suddenly I love you. And suddenly that's all that matters now.
Suddenly it seems I'm not the teacher, and there's so much more for me to learn. Suddenly I want to call a preacher And that's the sort of thought I used to spurn. There's no sense in trying to explain it. What and where and why and when and how.
And that's going to do it for us. But for tickets, or if you want to see extended cuts of all these interviews, head over to Broadway.com. And be sure to check out The Broadway Show Uncut wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and this is The Broadway Show.